My mother texted me the night before my sister's engagement dinner, 2 sentences, don't come, you understand? I understood, I've been understanding for 26 years. What she didn't know was that the next morning my name would be on every phone at that table. If you've ever built something in silence while the people who were supposed to notice look the other way, hit subscribe right now. Like this video if you believe recognition eventually hits people who have earned it. That is that story, and the ending is exquisite. Let's get into it. My name is Nora Voss. I'm 29, and for a long time, my family ran on simple unspoken maths. My sister counted and I didn't. It wasn't cruelty exactly, it was preference, worn smooth over 18 years until nobody even noticed it anymore. My sister got colour-coordinated birthday parties, her college acceptance letter got framed in the hallway right where guests would see it. Me, I got a hand-me-downs until I was old enough to buy my own clothes, and I got described to strangers as the younger one. Not a chef, not a person building anything, just a placeholder in a sentence my mother didn't think needed finishing. Here's the thing no one in my family understood about me. For the time I was a child, I could taste the difference between summer tomato sauce made from garden tomatoes and winter sauce made from a can. I knew when butter was salted, I knew when a dish was missing acid before I could explain what acid meant. My mother found this annoying, my sister found it weird. My father, who wasn't unkind, but wasn't paying attention either, just called me picky. By 17, I knew exactly what I wanted, not home cooking, real cooking, the restaurant kind, the kind where you wake up at 2 a.m, thinking about a sauce and write it down in the dark so you don't lose it. I told my parents I wanted to go to culinary school. My mother's response was to print out a list of pre-law programs at 3 different universities and leave it on my desk like a correction. My father said cooking was a nice hobby. My sister, 19 and already engaged to a man she later divorced, told me standing on your feet all day sounded exhausting. So I stopped telling them things. I applied to the Culinary Institute of America without a word to anyone, and when I got in, no one framed that letter either. I want you to sit with that for a second, because this is the part so many of us know in our bones. The right calibration that's supposed to happen when people realise who you are supposed to be, your built-in audience simply aren't going to show up. You don't get bitter about it, not exactly. You just stop setting a pace for them at the table you built somewhere else. And I built that. 2 part-time jobs through culinary school, student loans, a cramped apartment with 4 other students, where Tuesday nights meant free-for-all tasting dinners, and someone was always burning something at midnight. It was the first place I ever felt entirely at home. After graduation, I staged unpaid at 3 restaurants in New York, the way you do when you're building something and can't afford to be impatient. Then a paid position at a French-Japanese restaurant in the West Village until a chef who taught me everything by telling me almost exclusively what I'd done wrong. 3 years of that forged me. Then I got a recommendation to Nashville, a sous chef position, and 18 months later, I was running the kitchen head chef. The restaurant is called Wisteria. I never told my family any of this, not because I was hiding, because they stopped asking a long time ago, and I stopped offering things to people who already showed me they didn't want them. My mother's version of my career delivered to her friends at gathering was always some variation of, Nora does something in restaurants. We keep hoping she'll find something more stable. Her friends nodded sympathetically. I smiled and wanted to help with the dishes, because old habits die slow. My sister's engagement party dinner was at Hargrove, one of the nicer restaurants near where my family lived, 40 minutes from Nashville. When she called to tell me she was engaged, her exact words were, I wanted you to know so you don't accidentally make other plans. I hadn't been invited. She was just being considerate enough to tell me I wasn't wanted, so I wouldn't feel bad about it. 2 days later, before dinner, my mother sent the head count text. I didn't respond. I went to work. Here's what no one knew that night. 2 things were happening at exactly the same time, completely independent of each other, and neither belonged to anyone's plan. Food and Wine magazine had published the best chefs in America list that morning. I was on it, full profile, photographs, a quote I'd given 3 months earlier and forgotten I'd said. I learned to cook in a family where no one really saw me. That's probably why I cook the way I do. Everything I make to be noticed. And Harov, the restaurant hosting my sister's dinner, has sourced 3 of that night's signature dishes from mysterious supplier farm. One would help put on the map. The restaurant's operation manager knew exactly who I was. She added a note to the menu cards that mentioned my name. I found out at 11 that night, sitting on the concrete step outside my kitchen's back door, still in my chef white, scrolling through 14 missed calls. My grandmother answered on the first ring when I called her back. Why didn't you tell anyone? Then she read me the entire article out loud, slowly, every word, while I sat in the alley holding the phone with both hands. Honey, she said when she finished, you are extraordinary, do you know that? I pieced together what happened at the dinner from 3 different people over the following days. My grandmother, my aunt and my cousin, who sent me a voice memo at 1 o'clock that was mostly her whispering and trying not to laugh. The menu cards were out before the guests even sat down. My future brother-in-law's older sister, a food writer as it turned out, picked us up, read the supplier note and asked the table to no one in particular, "Is anyone here related to Nora Voss?" My mother said, "I'm sorry." The woman showed her the card. She was just named to the Food and Wine Best New Chef list. Her restaurant supplied part of the menu. My mother looked at the card, looked at my sister, looked back at the card. "Voss is my maiden name," she said. "Is she your daughter?" A long pause, enough to be its own answer. "She's our youngest one," my mother said. "She's in the food industry." By the time the first course landed, 7 people at the other end of the table had the article pulled up on their phones. Someone turned the screen towards my sister and said, "She looks like you. This is your sister?" My sister said yes. My cousin said it sounded like a closing door. Then my mother, thinking she was speaking quietly enough, leaned towards my future brother-in-law's mother and said, "We're very proud of her, of course. She's always been an independent one. Doesn't really stay in touch, but that's just her nature." My aunt, who had never once in my life stayed quiet when she had the option to speak, said from across the table, "She stays in touch with me and with Mom. And didn't she invite all of you to the restaurant twice? Nobody went. Didn't she send you reservations for your birthday last year too?" That last part was true. I arranged a dinner on the house for my parents and sister. They never showed up. My future brother-in-law, a genuinely pleasant man who sells commercial real estate and coaches young soccer, cleared his throat and said they had to book a table themselves. My sister said nothing. By the end of the night, 4 different guests had congratulated my mother on having a daughter named one of the best new chefs in the country. Each time she said, "Yes, we're very proud," in the exact tone of someone reading unfamiliar lines of a script she had been handed 30 seconds before the curtain rose. My sister's engagement wasn't the main topic of the conversation at her own engagement dinner. I didn't orchestrate that. I wasn't even in the room. I just existed, and the work I built without an audience turned out to be loud enough on its own. Her voicemail came in at 47 seconds, 5 seconds of silence first, then, "I don't know how you managed to make this about yourself without even being there, but somehow you did. I hope you're happy." A pause. "Food and wine, Nora, you should have told me." I listened to it twice and deleted it. I hadn't made anything about myself. I simply stopped hiding. My grandmother called me the next morning and we talked for an hour. She told me she spent 10 years telling people I work somewhere called Heartgrove, a restaurant that doesn't exist, because that's what she had been told and never questioned. "I should have asked you directly," she said, "instead of trusting what your mother said. Then, will you cook for me sometime?" I asked her anyway she wanted. My mother called 2 days later. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was a small masterpiece of almost saying something. "The dinner was lovely. We should catch up." And near the end, "I know we haven't always been supportive as we could have been. I think that's just a communication issue." A communication issue? I listened to it while preparing lunch. Butter melting in the pan, garlic just starting to turn translucent, and I didn't call her back. My father texted a week after that, "Saw the article, looks like things are going well. Your mother and I would like to visit the restaurant sometime." Not an apology, not an acknowledgement of the dinner they skipped for the years of "she works in a kitchen somewhere." Just a door crack slightly open. I sat with it for almost 2 weeks before I answered. "I'd like that. Text me when you're in Nashville and I'll make a reservation." No forgiveness, not yet, maybe, not ever in the way that words usually work, but a possibility held the way you hold something that might break you if you grip it too hard. My sister still hasn't reached out, and I've realised I don't need a speech prepared for when she does. The truth doesn't need staging. It already happened in front of 40 witnesses who weren't even trying to make a point. There's a frame on the wall by the kitchen pass at Wisteria now, a printout of the food and wine feature. I didn't put it there for validation. I know exactly what it cost me to get here. I put it there so that on quiet mornings before the line cooks arrive, I can look at it and remember it's real, that I built it from a place where nobody was watching. If you're your own version of those years right now, building something nobody in your family bothers to ask about, here's what I'd like to tell you. It is enough to be seen by your work. The recognition will come or it won't. The family will understand or they won't, but what you're building is real regardless of who's in the room. If the story hits something in you, let me know in the comments. What's your version of the strawberries on the counter have been? The thing you built when no one was watching? Hit subscribe for more stories where the truth arrives right on time. Like this video if you believe quiet works eventually gets loud, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's enough to build for yourself first.